Okay, now we're going to talk about solving two-step equations. So we already know one-step equations like x plus 2 equals 4 or x divided by 2 equals 4. We know how to solve these because these are our one-step equations. We're just going to use our inverse operations. And if you don't remember what inverse operations are, go back to the helpful links section where it talks about that. Or just keep watching. So, for this first one, for x plus 2 equals 4, I want to isolate my variable, so I'm going to circle it if I can't remember how to do that. And what I'm going to do is the inverse of plus 2. Isolating my variable means getting it by itself, so everything else needs to go. So the opposite of plus 2 is minus 2, because the inverse operation to adding is subtracting, right? The opposite of adding is subtracting. The golden rule of algebra is what I do to one side, I must do to the other. And hopefully that's already engraved in your mind. So, we're doing minus 2 to both sides. The plus 2 and the minus 2 are equal and opposite. We say it cancels out, but what it does is it turns into a 0. But we don't have to write x plus 0. We just have to write the x. So, now I have x equals, now on the other hand, I have 4 minus 2. 4 minus 2 is 2. Let's take another look at our equation now. So I have my x by itself, my variable has been isolated, and I have a single number on the other side. So I have solved for x. In the second example, the opposite of divide by 2 is times 2. And if you want, you can circle your variable to remember that you need to isolate that variable. So to get rid of the rest that's on that side with the x, we've got that divide by 2. So the opposite of dividing is multiplication. So I'm going to multiply by 2. And I'm going to do it on both sides. So we say that these cancel out, but what really happens is 2 divided by 2 is 1. And then 1 times x is just x. So that's how we have x just by itself now. X equals, on our other side, we have 4 times 2. 4 times 2 is 8. Once again, our variable is isolated. Everything on the other side is simplified. So we're good to go. These are examples of one-step equations. So the thing to keep in mind is that I circled my variable, and then I got rid of the stuff that was on the side with the variable so that the variable could be isolated, so that the variable could be by itself. Okay, so let's try an example of a two-step equation. Let's say I have 2x plus 4 equals 16. So, now, my variable, if I circle my variable, it's going to be confusing as to what I'm supposed to do first. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to circle the whole term that has my variable. And now it's pretty easy to see what I need to get rid of. My 2x is safe in its bubble, but the plus 4 is still there. So I'm going to do my inverse operations to get rid of the plus 4. I'm going to do a minus 4 on both sides instead. So I'm left with my 2x still, because that hasn't changed. But the plus 4 and the minus 4 turned into a 0. We don't have to write plus 0. 16 minus 4 is 12. Now I'm back to a one-step equation. So now I can isolate my variable, I can circle my variable again. Well, what's happening between the 2 and the x? Well, if there's no math operation visible, then that means it's multiplication, right? If there's no math operation between the two. Well, what's the opposite of multiplication? Well, it's division, right? So I'm going to divide by 2 on both sides. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. 1 times x is just x. I have nothing else on that side, so I can put my equal sign. 12 divided by 2 is 6. And now I have my answer. So this is how we do two-step equations. Let's do another example. Let's say I've got x divided by 3 minus, I don't know, 6 equals 15. So my first step with my one-step equations would be to circle my variable. But now that we're doing two-step equations, I'm going to circle the term that has my variable. So now that my term is safe in its little bubble, I need to get rid of whatever else is on that side. So I need to get rid of the minus 6. Well, how do I get rid of a minus 6? I get rid of a minus 6 by adding 6, right? The inverse to subtracting is adding. What I do to one side, I must do to the other. So now I've got x divided by 3, because that hasn't changed. But the minus 6 and the plus 6 turned into a 0, and I don't have to write the 0. That's all that's on that side, so I can put my equal sign. 15 plus 6 is 21. So now it's just a one-step equation again, right? I can circle my variable, and I can get rid of anything else that's not in that bubble. So how do I get rid of a divide by 3? Well, I multiply by 3, right? That's its inverse operation. So 3 divided by 3 is 1. 1 times x is x. So I do have my x and nothing else on that side, so I can put my equal sign. 21 times 3 is going to be 63. My x is by itself. The other side is simplified. We're done. So that's all two-step equations are. So there's a couple of rules to keep in mind. 1, circle the term that has the variable. And 2, remember your inverse operations. Now there's one other way that you can do this if you don't like having those steps. The other way that you can do two-step equations is just remember that 99% of the time you're going to undo the addition and subtraction before the multiplication and division. And you can go back through our example problems and see that we did undo the addition and subtraction. We did our inverse operations on the addition and subtraction before we did our inverse operations on the multiplication and division. So go ahead, take a look, and make sure that you get your homework done from last week and that you get your homeworks done for this week. All right, thank you, everybody.